Hi, everyone. So this episode, Adventures in Babysitting, was recorded pre-pandemic. So if it's not referenced, that's why.
Yeah, so if you feel like it's weird that we seem to both be in the same room, we were, but we're not now. And that was long ago in the before times.
So take back your shame.
Yes, and please to enjoy Adventures in Babysitting.
Adventures in Babysitting.
Hello and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's a podcast where a filmmaker and a comedian adventure through the movies of the 1980s that we love or love to hate, looking back with modern eyes to see how they held up. And this is a movie called Adventures in Babysitting, a movie selection from 1987.
Park. Getting ready for the greatest night of her life.
Hi. I gotta cancel.
Now she's stuck babysitting the Anderson kids. Sarah.
Mom got Chris to babysit for me.
Chris?
Her brother Brad and his best friend Gal.
Who is this kid?
Stray dog.
Take good care of my baby. I'll guard her with my life.
What could possibly go wrong?
Chris, I'm in trouble. Hang up and sit down. I'll be there in half an hour.
This is the night when things go from bad
My mom's car!
to worse.
Big city. Scum sucker.
Too ridiculous.
Wanna go to bed?
Hey, I like danger.
This is great!
You should try babysitting.
And this is only the beginning.
Your friend is dead. Chris can handle it.
Sarah's probably hanging from the rafters by now. Sarah, hold on! I'm still in control here.
You could say they were having a bad night
Any problems? No, not really.
if they weren't having such a good time. Adventures in Babysitting.
Think your parents will ever ask me to babysit again?
If they do, I'd ask them for $1 more an hour.
Adventures in Babysitting, or as I pretty much think it should have been called, Adventures in White Privilege. Oh boy. We went directly from a movie that held up perfectly to a movie that does not hold up at all.
There is a theme to this podcast, and that ultimately is about revisiting some of the movies that you saw as a kid and how they've held up. It's not just a celebration of 80s movies, but it's a kind of about the things that molded us and shaped us as kids, and then kind of returning to those stories and with new eyes,
And
with adult eyes.
seeing how weird and terrible they are.
I'm so relieved. I was really worried that this was like one of your keystone movies.
No, I mean, but I remember watching this movie over and over and over and loving this movie. But oh my God, there are more sex jokes. Like, this is like a sex comedy romp, like especially the Anthony Rapp character, who's like the geeky best friend of the geeky kid that's getting babysat, is just like a gross little horn dog who is constantly making sex jokes, and they're crass and they're gross and they were embarrassing to see with my kids. And there's like so many bad words in this PG-13 movie. There's at least 2 fucks, a handful of assholes, and a sprinkling of shits.
Back in the day when you can, now you can only have, for a PG-13 movie, you can only have 1 fuck.
Yeah.
And there's 2.
Yep. And there's also like, the movie is racist. The movie is homophobic. Like, it's terrible. Oh my God.
I'm so sorry to those of you who have tuned in to hear about a movie that you've loved or was influential.
It's basically about like kids from the suburbs going into the city and both being threatened by and like shockingly like using their privilege to like get in people's faces. All right.
The power of white suburbia.
Here we go. So Elizabeth Shue is getting ready for a very exciting date to a French restaurant with Bradley Whitford.
I'm so
little
excited
baby Bradley Whitford.
that her dream boat is Bradley Whitford from The West Wing.
And the first thing he does is show up and cancel on her, which I'm like, what time was their date? Like 3 p.m.? Uh-huh. She's ready to go. It is 100% daylight. And she has time after he cancels on her to not only change, hang out with her friend, Brenda, who is Proto Barb, right? Like Stranger Things owes its Barb to Brenda. And then decide to go babysit for a family. So their date had to have been at 3 p.m. on the Ferris Bueller timeline. So off she goes to babysit for a little girl who, and I will say this for the movie, at least the little girl isn't obsessed with something cliche girly.
Yeah, she is obsessed with Marvel's Thor.
That's right. Who nobody knew anything about in 1987.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, super comic book people, yeah, but like there was no Thor in like the mainstream zeitgeist, right?
It's so bizarre.
It is,
but in a good way.
I read that Christopher Columbus, who this was his directorial debut.
Yes, Christopher Columbus of Home Alone, of Harry Potter, of he wrote Gremlins and Goonies. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is his first kind of like, like the street cred that he had earned from writing Goonies and Gremlins. This is his directorial debut.
Oh, and so it was meant to be She-Ra. That the little girl was obsessed with She-Ra, who very much was in the 1987 zeitgeist of like what a kid that age would be into. And he was like, no, let's make it the Avengers. Let's make it Thor. And so when I first like remember hearing about Thor movies, the Chris Hemsworth editions, I'd be like, oh, like from Adventures in Babysitting. Like Vincent D'Onofrio from Adventures in Babysitting.
It's a total surprise to me because I've only seen this movie once. And when I saw it, we rented it on VHS. So it's been a while. We got it from Superstar Video. R.I.P. And so I remembered it, It's like, oh, okay, that was fun. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I probably like ended up watching this movie a little bit more because it was like, oh, the main character, the Ferris Bueller of this story, is a girl, and she's having to like use her resourcefullness. Yeah,
this is 1 year after Ferris
save the day.
Yeah, 1 year after Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and this is kind of in some ways a female Ferris Bueller.
Yes.
I mean, she's not like it, but what is similar is that it is one of those crazy Wild Night movies.
Yeah.
To where they have like 12 encounters. They encounter new, different scenarios that challenge them. Mm-hmm. People who challenge their original beliefs.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a very teenagery, puberty, coming of age, entering the real world story.
Yeah. Like stepping outside of your bubble and seeing that people aren't necessarily as good as you think they are or as bad as you think they are. And then sometimes they're exactly as bad as you think that they are.
Yeah. And so it's usually some dweeby character who's taken on an adventure, who's kind of resisted entering the real world.
Yeah.
And kind of, in Ferris Bueller, it's kind of a flip that Cameron is that character. Mm-hmm. Ferris Bueller is kind of the mischief maker, the hand that's bringing him along through these adventures, whereas Ferris Bueller's totally fine having these adventures,
Yeah.
But usually it's a character who's taken. I feel like is there a John Hughes version of this? I'm not sure, but.
There's a lot of versions of this movie in the 80s.
Yeah, but basically they've learned something and then they return to their normal world, like Dorothy, and then they are now like an adult,
better,
and they can finally stand up to their mom, or they can tell them that they don't want to go to college, or I will go to college now, and there's been some sort of transformation of having gone through these adventures.
Chat. So while she's there babysitting for, like, I was so confused. Like, eventually they tell you that Elizabeth Shue, is 17. But the kids that she's babysitting for, Sarah, I would have to say is probably 13. And so that would make her older brother 15. But I was like, everybody looks 30. Everybody looks the exact same age. And so the older brother has a crush, that's his story, is that he's got a huge crush on Chris, and she keeps referring to them as children. And I guess it made a little bit more sense because the mom was like, oh, he's leaving, he's not going to be here. That's A, why he's not babysitting his own damn sister, and B, why it explains why you're not supposed to be babysitting him, because you don't need a 17-year-old to babysit a 15-year-old, right? She's there to babysit the little girl. And the brother just decides to stay instead of go with his best friend, Anthony Rapp, who is a nightmare in this fucking movie.
Yeah.
So the little sister, Sarah, she's into Thor. She's into roller skates. She is into mismatching her colors. And I love her. She's like, that's me. So I was 7 when this movie came out. And I was like, yeah, I'm her. That's who I see myself as. The older brother is a goober. He's a dork. Right?
Yeah.
He's just a little
He's
dweeb.
the worst.
And then his friend is this disgusting hornball douche canoe who just has oppositional defiance and is borderline sociopath because every situation they get themselves into, he just wants to make it worse.
Yeah, he's kind of a cliche trope machine of the horny kid.
Yeah.
Yeah, this definitely feels like a first movie. Chris Columbus is still getting his sea legs. I would say there's definitely aspects of what his later better work is.
Yeah.
But he's still kind of the characters are not as vibrant or dynamic. It's still kind of a prototypical Chris Columbus at this point.
Yeah. So the sort of an initiation of the whole movie is that Barb, no, it's not Barb. Her name is Brenda. Brenda has run away from home where she hates her stepmom, and she's ended up somehow at the bus stop.
So all of our characters live in suburbia, and
in
then
giant mansions.
Yeah, and then the again, kind of like John Hughes, very similar
to Home Alone. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then the big city is Chicago.
Yes. And so she's in the city, and in the little time we see her at the bus stop, which, by the way, I had to keep reminding myself the whole time because our mission is to rescue Brenda.
Right.
Brenda got her own self into this mess. This is Brenda's situation of her own making. And maybe she needs to learn a little lesson. But she calls collect and begs Chris to come get her from the bus station where she has no money.
She's run away from home.
There's a homeless guy who's like, get out of my house when she's in the phone booth. And there's a flasher with a long trench coat, but instead of flashing his wang doodle, he's got a gun.
Yeah. The movie, the tone of the movie is very goofy. I would say
super goofy.
I'm surprised that it's PG-13 because it feels like it's so a lot of these movies are aimed towards teenagers, and I feel like this one, the style of the characters, how broad the characters are, it's almost aimed closer to the lower end of the teenage spectrum, the
it's
tween
aimed
spectrum.
At Daryl. Yeah, it's Daryl is the target audience.
12 to 13 is, I feel, is the kind of ideal audience member.
Yeah. As
opposed to a lot of these other movies where it's the people who are contemplating leaving high school and going on with the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
It's like with Ferris Bueller, it's he right at that precipice of leaving the womb of high school and going off into the real world and being an adult. That's kind of the subtext of these movies, Yeah. That you're leaving your safe space, suburbia.
And now you're in the city.
Yeah.
Where literally anything can happen. And this movie is just so not dialed into what's appropriate and what is just gross. Daryl makes a rape joke, and there's just open racism. There's a lot of gross shit in this movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they go out to rescue Barb, and there is a central thing in this movie. Would you call it a MacGuffin of the Playboy?
Yeah.
So
that the MacGuffin is the thing that everyone cares about, and it's all right, cool.
Yeah.
It's the spy plans, the microfilm.
Exactly. And
the briefcase.
It starts out as Daryl just has this copy of a Playboy, and the centerfold, the woman, looks like Elizabeth Shue. Okay. So as they're driving into the city, they get a flat tire. And, of course...
There's no spare.
but she also does not have her purse.
Yeah.
So she has no money to fix this situation. So the first thing that happens is that they get picked up by a tow truck driver who at first seems like very altruistic. He's like, I can't leave you kids out here. I'll take you to Dawson's. I'll buy you a tire. I know I'm a scary looking monster.
With a hook hand.
But come on, guys. I'll take care of you. It wouldn't be right for me to leave you out here. And you're like, oh my God. They're terrified of him.
Yeah, they were absolutely terrified, and he turns out to be a nice guy until he gets a call from his friend saying, oh my God, your wife is totally getting boned right now. He's over there right now. And then he just pulls a gun out of the glove compartment, and it just turns into a mess.
Yep. It turns into a gunfight.
Yeah.
Where a guy with his pants half off comes tumbling out of the house. There are gunshots ringing out, whizzing past these children's faces, and they have to run from the gunfire. And they hop into a car that happens to be open. Lo and behold, this car is being stolen.
Right, by the first non-white person in the movie.
That's right. He is actively stealing this car. But he is also nice. He's like, you guys will be okay. I got to do a couple of things.
And in terms of like who you meet being different than who you expect him to be, he turns out to be basically one of their biggest allies in the movie.
That's right. And he's just like, this guy is chill as fuck. Like he has the opposite of zero chill. He has everybody's chill because he's just like, oh, some kids are in my car now that I'm stealing. Okay. Oh, they're going to get murdered by my bosses. Okay. What, they're escaping out the roof and shimmying across the rafters of the ceiling. Good for them. Right. That's his, he's just like in it for the ride the whole time, rooting for the kids. And like, yeah, he's on their side, but he's also with the bad guys.
Yeah.
So he takes them to
and I feel like if this movie was made now, he would have been the love interest at the end, almost kind of like the Charlie Sheen character in Ferris Bueller.
100%.
Like the dangerous guy who's willing, and then that would have symbolized that she's not looking for this Prince Charming, but someone that she has a connection with that is maybe like the person she didn't know she always wanted or whatever, you know? And instead, she actually like literally meets like a Prince Charming.
Yes, literally, yes.
Well, figuratively.
Let's
use that word.
Yeah. But I think that would have made a better movie, right? Because like this guy's hot and he's like helping them, and he's clearly resourceful and street smart and all that stuff. So they basically escape. Like they get put up in they come to a chop shop. Yeah. Basically, which is
but there's also a big boss gang meeting going on.
Yes.
All the Italian big boss gang meetings. We're meeting tonight.
And the creepiest guy is just like, I'm gonna kill those kids.
I know we've got a contract to deliver all these Ferraris, but I don't like them. Let's not do it.
So the kids and Chris are all up in a upper office room, and they just shimmy out the ceiling and walk across the ceiling and get away.
So this goes outside the scope of the movie, but so I watched our previous episode, Aliens. I watched these movies back to back. We're recording a double.
Yep.
And so even though Aliens was a half hour longer than this movie, it's like, oh my God, this movie just kept going on and on. It was like,
it sure did.
Whew, yeah,
because there's just thing after thing. So that what happens after they escape from the chop shop, which by the way, they steal a Playboy, which is the same Playboy that they had that got thrown out the window, but this one has like gangster info in it.
Yeah.
So now they're being pursued.
Yeah, and then there's another kind of running gag is that there's this Playboy, Miss March looks exactly like Elizabeth Shue. Mm-hmm. You know?
So the running joke is like, are you Miss March? She's like, what are you talking about?
Right. And obviously, and then the criminals wrote their secret messages in the Playboy. I guess he was on the phone and he reached for something and
just
writing down. Or maybe they were just like having a lunch and he's like, dude, I got some great ideas. and he just writes it on the most available thing. But either way,
which is the Playboy that everyone keeps open on their desk.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But that's the MacGuffin. That's the thing that's got the secret boss notes in them.
And that's why they're being pursued.
So was it a bunch of math? Because if it was just like, oh, reminder, we'll tell Philly that we're going to do these many cars.
That.
And he apparently just has a terrible memory.
Terrible memory.
So what was it, like 10 Ferraris and 3 Porsches? Like, dang it, I really don't want to, like...
I can't get it wrong.
And he takes... This big boss takes such a hands-on...
There's like a big boss, a mid-level boss, and then our car thief guy.
Yeah, and they're always in the car together.
Yeah.
It's like he doesn't want to delegate. The big boss is going to go on this mission with all of them. That's some hands-on managing.
Yeah. He's taking a page out of the Patrick Swayze book of leadership.
Right. Be nice.
Do it yourself. Okay, so they end up in a blues bar.
Yes.
Where they're not allowed to leave without singing the blues.
So it's been a while since I've been into a blues bar. So maybe they've changed this since 1987. But when they accidentally step onto the blues bar's stage, they decree when they try to leave, it's like, no, you have set foot on stage, and by the rule of all blues clubs, you must sing before you exit.
That's right.
So that must have been phased out.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it depends
or maybe
on
it was just that bar, like,
or if you're just going to an authentic blues bar or not.
Right.
But what doesn't make any sense to me is that, like, then she proceeds to, after a lot of hemming and hawing, sing a song about how she has the babysitting blues.
Yeah, the whitest blues number ever.
And all of these people who are at the jazz club for a good time are just into it.
Yeah, so this kind of represents my problem with the movie is with that it's so twisted in so like again like these kind of movies, these One Wild Night movies, it's all about like going into a place where you're intimidated and then you magically transform everyone around you and they accept you and like you now.
Right.
So they walk in.
You had it in you the whole time. You had the blues in you the whole time, Elizabeth Shue.
Yeah, and so basically like there's this shot where there's like 50 African Americans,
people of color,
giving them stone-faced "We hate you," and then they sing their white man blues, and then everyone is like cheering and loving it.
Sitting blues, baby,
yeah,
baby sitting blues, and everyone's like, yeah, we love this babysitting blues. We can't relate to it, but we love it.
A better version of that same scene is the biker bar in Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
Yes, yeah.
Which is dialed up to silliness, but also done in such a ridiculous way.
Yeah. And so, like, everybody was like, yay, we love you guys. Oh, my God. Never come back again, but we love you. It's so gross. Like, it just in 2020, watching this movie is gross. Okay, so then they're just wandering again. They meet a 17-year-old hooker, which reminds them that they're supposed to be rescuing their friend Barb. Not Barb, but Brenda, for God's sake. Meanwhile, she's at the bus station, and she's, like, holding on to for some reason, she thinks she finds a kitty at the bus station.
Her glasses have been stolen.
It's a giant rat, and she just like proceeds to be rude to everybody she encounters, which is what bothered me, is that she's not like, oh my God, somebody help me, I'm just a fish out of water, like give me a hand.
She's on a similar journey, but she does not learn the lesson.
No, like when she tries to get a hot dog, she's like, I have this check, it was written from my friend's mom to her, and then she wrote it over to me, so I'll write it over to you, and then you give me a hot dog.
You
and
give me the
like,
difference in a hot dog, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, I'm not taking a check.
Yeah, I wouldn't take a check.
No, for a hot dog. And she's like, well, I need a check. I need a hot dog. And he's like, well, I need cash. And she's just like really rude and mean to him. He's in the right in this situation. But he does say to her, you slip me some cash and I'll slip you the wiener. So that line is in this movie. And
you don't get my wiener.
Yeah. She's really, that bugged me, is that she's not in any way like nice to anybody that she's encountering at this bus station. She's like bringing it all on herself. Anyway, then they get into a gang fight on a subway.
Yeah, they've accidentally entered the Warriors, and so you've got two opposing gangs on the subway.
In a subway car who are like just don't notice these suburban kids in the middle. Yeah, it's very West Side Story. They're making beautiful stage pictures.
Yeah,
like,
it's really more the Warriors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is great.
And they're like, we're going to kill you as soon as we cross this one arbitrary street. Right. And then, of course, the babysitter is like, could you just let us off before you kill us? And then, goaded by Daryl, the dweeby little kid is like, you don't talk to her that way, you filthy big city scum. Which is like, that's not the appropriate tactic.
Yeah.
You need to apologize for calling her a bitch. Okay. Anyway, he gets stabbed in the toe.
Yeah.
They take him to a hospital. They have a 12-second death scare.
Yeah, he gets just a single stitch.
Then they end up at a frat party.
Where Prince Charming is.
Everybody thinks that she's Miss March. A drunk lady at the frat party is straight up trying to bone zone this 15-year-old kid. It's gross.
Well, and it's the funny thing is that, it looks like the kid is 12 and then they're 30, but they're supposed to be only 19? 4 years difference.
I don't know. It was still gross. And then the father of the bride, Prince Charming, is the husband from Father of the Bride, drops them off at Dawson's garage. Because I guess the guy still dropped off their car.
Yeah.
Oh, they run into him, right?
The fraternity takes up the money to give to her.
Yeah.
And then they're helping her pay to get their car out of the tow station.
Yep. Whatever. So then this is where things get really crazy, you guys. Everything up until now has basically made sense. But they go to the Dawson's garage where Vincent D'Onofrio resembles Thor.
Yes.
At first,
Blonde
he's like,
blacks.
This is a big city, and I won't take $45 because you owe me $50. So get out of here, you kids.
Yeah, and she 100% believes that he is legitimately Thor.
Yeah.
She has mixed up Chicago for New York. Because obviously, Thor lives in New York City.
Right.
That's my pet peeve.
Okay.
But I was so pleasantly surprised that Vincent D'Onofrio is the beefcake Thor.
Yeah.
In this.
Well, and she convinces him, through her, she offers him the hammer, right? And he's like, okay, fine, take your car.
Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, he ultimately is all gruff, and she warms his heart just a little smidge. Mm-hmm. She offers her helmet, and he's like, no, I got one at home.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. It's a helmet. All right. So there are 12 more things that happen in this movie, friends. A lot more things happen.
It feels like this is about where the movie is
starting to slow down.
Is finishing, and then it's like, ooh, there's 30 minutes left.
Yep. We get more Barb at the bus station. It's not Barb. It's Brenda. Love Barb. Hate Brenda. Yeah. The next thing that happens is that apparently...
Yeah, literally my notes are after... there's a fucking Vincent D'Onofrio in this.
Yep.
Is the next note is, wow, this movie keeps going.
Yep. Well, and also, the geography makes no sense because they're in, the slums of downtown, right, on their way to the bus station when they see the French restaurant that she was supposed to go to with Bradley Whitford.
Right.
And they see Bradley Whitford's car.
Right, which has the license plate.
So cool.
Did you read the trivia? That's actually Bradley Whitford's car. That's also his license plate.
Yep, it's a red Camaro that says "so cool." So now we learned a little something about Bradley Whitford.
He is so cool.
So they go in to confront him, and Elizabeth Shue is like, "I thought you loved me. You lied to me, and you're here with this other woman." And he's like, he's just a total dick about it. He's like, "Yeah, what about it? Get out of here, you." So the little kid is like, you should be so lucky to have a girl like Chris, and you're just wasting it away, and you're not even worth it. And then Anthony Rapp pushes him into another table.
Yeah, the problem at this point is that there's too many payoffs that they felt like they needed to pay off, standing up to Bradley Whitford. The kids have it. I feel like after they get their car, that their journey is kind of closing around, and so
but it's not. Three more things happen.
They've got all these different threads in terms of like the bad guys winning the Playboy and accidentally bumping into the kid's parents.
Yeah. So like while this is happening, while they're confronting Mike at the French restaurant, Sarah escapes and tries to go to a toy store and gets kidnapped essentially by the bad guys, runs to her parents' building where they are at a party, and then like is being pursued by these bad guys who are like, we just want the thing we think you've got. She doesn't have it. But they're like, just give us the thing we think you've got. And she's like, no, I'm going to climb out of a window of a high rise.
Yeah.
And slide down the front of a high rise building because that seems like a safer choice. And then he tries to rescue her. Like the medium bad guy is like, hey, like, let's forget this whole magazine thing. Like, I can call Jeff back and I get those numbers again. Like, please climb in off the side of this building. Like, he's trying to help her. And he even says, like, it's dangerous. Like, grab this rope. Like, he tries to pull her in. She's like, no. She lets go. He comes to try and rescue her. And she's like, fuck you. Like, scoots away. Anyway, the sexy car thief gets the Playboy. They leave the guy who tried to rescue the little girl out on the end of a building. He's probably dead now. They go get Brenda. They're like, let's go home. But one more thing needs to happen. No, two more things. At least two more things happen. They see the parents while they're driving home. They have to race against the clock to beat them home. Everything turns out fine. But still, her knight in shining armor has to find her.
Mm-hmm. And return the slipper.
Yep, which is a skate. It's a little girl's skate that she, being a safe person from the suburbs, had no idea she shouldn't put her entire name and address on. So she brings the skate back and they kiss. They kiss at the end. And the kid who is in love with her is like looking out the window and he's like, okay, I guess it's probably better for her to be with a college guy. And then he's like looking out the window and he's like, aw, shucks.
And then that's it.
And then, no, he goes inside. He closes the window. He closes the blinds. And then he shuts the blinds.
And then you hear a gunshot.
And then he kissed me. Yeah,
that's really sad.
It's like, this is insane. But I do love the part where Brenda's like, you got to take me home, Chris. And she's like, no, fuck you. Find your own way home. This is all your fault. And meanwhile, the kids are all like, this was the best night of my entire life. Can we do it again next Friday? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's not a good movie. It doesn't make up for the things that suck about it with humor, and it doesn't make up for the things that suck about it with charm. And I don't think it's Elizabeth Shue's fault. I don't think it's any of the actors' fault. Mm-hmm. I think it's the movie's fault.
I would blame a couple of the actors, but yeah, I think it's the movie's fault. Like I was pretty miserable with the kids' performances, except for the little girl.
You didn't like dudes. Anthony Rapp?
I like Anthony Rapp, but not in this movie.
Not in this movie?
But, I mean, with what the character was.
Yeah, the character is just a sleaze. Like somebody would have slapped that kid in the face and put him in a mental institution if he walked around behaving that way. Yeah, like I would liken him to Buzz, right? The just unapologetically mean older brother in Home Alone. Mm. It's just like a character with no redeeming qualities. And I guess there is a running joke too, as well, throughout like all Christopher Columbus movies where someone hits a lawn jockey, which is like only funny if you live in a suburb. But yeah, I just think the things that are so tone deaf and out of touch and gross about this movie undo anything that's cute or charming about it. And like people loved this movie. There was 2 times that it was tried to be spin off into a TV show. No,
there is a TV movie version of this. Like what, 2016?
I don't know. There was one in 1989 with Brian Austin Green, and then I know they did it one other time.
Yeah, I think it was super recent.
So here are all the people who they wanted to play the Elizabeth Shue role before they got to Elizabeth Shue. they actually offered it to Melanie Griffith and Tatum O'Neal, who said, no, thank you. Sharon Stone and Kelly McGillis, who is the love interest in Top Gun, were both like, we'll do that movie. And the filmmakers were like, no, thank you. And then they also considered Brooke Shields, Kathleen Turner, who, like, they don't seem like they're in the right age category.
No.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Jodie Foster, and Michelle Pfeiffer. So, like...
They all turned it down, yeah.
Yep, basically everybody.
Yeah. Elizabeth Shue was super charming.
She was great. I liked her very much.
Yeah.
And it's like, she's, like, basically playing the same character that she is in Back to the Future Part 2, right?
Right.
Just someone who's in a bad situation. But yeah, like, I don't know. It's so hard to even compare this movie to something else. Because it just, like, in my opinion, it doesn't hold up. Like,
yeah.
The story could hold up, like, if you made it a little bit more modern, you know?
Yeah, I'm curious what that recent TV movie changed.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to take a peek at that. But, like, yeah, it's so clear that this was just written from the point of view of somebody who's never been outside of their little world. And, like, oh, what's scary out there? What'll happen to me when I go out there in that big, scary, ew, the city? What? Ew, gross. No one goes to the city and comes back alive. It's like Mordor, and it's Chicago. So, like, I can't in good faith and confidence recommend this movie. Like, I my kids did not think it was fun or funny.
Yeah.
They were groaning a lot. Like, I don't see very many redeeming qualities.
Yeah, and I hate to say it. I mean, because it's a bummer. You want to love even the smallest little things. You know, ultimately you put on any movie, you know, and you're rooting for it to be good.
Yeah.
You know, or something in it.
Well, and I picked this movie. We had sort of a last minute swapperoo.
Right.
And I picked this movie to be like, oh, yeah. That'll be great. Like,
yeah.
We'll all sit down and watch it together. It's going to be so much fun. It was not, indeed, fun. So on a scale of 1 Playboy to 10
How many centerfolds?
Playboys.
How many centerfolds?
How many Miss Marches?
I'm gonna go with 4.
Yeah.
And that's just out of, like, not wanting to be a hater.
I think I'm gonna go even lower because I'm mad at this movie.
Okay.
For being better in my memory than it is in real life.
Yeah. So Vengeance.
It's a Vengeance 3. I'm giving it a Vengeance 3.
Okay.
Yeah, same thing. Or like whatever I gave Young Guns because they're like, no, I loved that movie.
Yeah, I had the Vengeance because I loved Young Guns, and it was like,
oh no, this movie sucks.
Yeah.
It's no good.
Yeah.
We should not watch it anymore. Or we should come with one of those Disney Plus warnings where it's like, there may be some culturally insensitive material in here that was totally okay with us all the time. Enjoy. All right. So do you have a deep cut recommendation?
I do.
Okay.
So this is another this is another kind of wild night. All these things happen and I've come back transformed, which is American Graffiti.
Oh, yeah. Good job.
So it is surprisingly groundbreaking when you revisit it and you think about the movies that came before and whatever. Like, it's very adult. It's very almost documentarian in the way that it's told, and also just like other behind the scenes of like. You really didn't have these wall-to-wall music movies, like like where you'd have like a big soundtrack after it. There was like what are called like needle drops, and it had like 12 or 18 or whatever. It was just like a ton of popular music from that age to transform you, and that was a huge deal. Yeah, and from there on in, you had like these big. You had these big albums of like all the music from this movie kind of thing, but also just in terms of like not only in terms of storytelling, it's a very human movie for George Lucas, who then it was a massive success and let him do Star Wars. But also like just like this, there was all these I'm talking about all the technical stuff, but I mean, it's like I still think about moments about growing up and learning these lessons, and there are some stuff that were like Richard Dreyfuss gets in with a gang, but it's not like an all minority gang.
Yeah.
But it feels like very real because there's like this documentary way that they film it. There's like, seeing all these other different, because you have all these different characters having different experiences. They all get their kind of their own little stories. But yeah.
Yeah. Then it's a much better movie than this is.
Yes.
Okay, so once again, you've done a very good job, and I'm going to do a very bad job. And I'm going to recommend a movie that might also be terrible. I'm going to recommend...
So that's the theme. Also may be terrible.
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, which I also haven't watched since I was a kid. I remember liking it, but it's probably pretty terrible. Christina Applegate, they get left a home with a babysitter. The babysitter dies, and then she decides to go get a job because she needs to learn to be responsible, and on and on and on. And I don't know. David Duchovny's in it. That's all I remember vaguely. So I want you to watch it and tell me if it doesn't hold up and is terrible. But yeah, that's all I could think of. I don't have anything good.
No. I think we have our recommendations appeal to different categories.
Yeah. I'm hitting that lowbrow category. I'm here for you. Okay, so where can people find all things Squishy Studios?
SquishyStudios.com.
Excellent.
Yay, and how about you?
Well, everybody can find everything about NCT Improv Comedy Club at nctphoenix.com. It's so good that we have websites for our things.
Rarely updated websites.
Speaking of websites for things, you can find the episode post and other exciting stuff at mostexcellentpod.com, including links to all of our all of our social media. Find us on social media, say hi, tell us why you think that we were completely wrong about Adventures in Babysitting.
We are prepared to accept your wrath.
Yeah, let us know what movie you think we should do next. Say hi to us, whatever you want to do. And also don't forget to rate, thumbs up, subscribe, review, all that stuff. Interact with us. We want you to do it. And, as always, thank you for listening. And while you're out there in the world, remember to keep the Most Excellent 80s Movies podcast motto in mind. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.